Okay, we are going to start here pretty soon. And, obviously some news come out last couple days about as you guys saw in the title, is the technology that's going to be available in the dugout for the 2025 season. So this coming season. And what the impacts those are going to have on the game. Do I think it's a good thing or a bad thing? We're going to get into all of that. And ultimately kind of what the impact will be moving forward. Obviously, this is kind of just a stepping stone for what's going to be allowed in the dugout. And we'll go through that article. Not very long, pretty short, but we'll just go over kind of what it says and what the implications are. And then another topic I'm going to cover, especially, in our team meeting at Elite Sports Advising yesterday, every week we talk about, clients that we're working with, and if we need, getting in touch with certain coaches, or, how the game's changing, all these rules, what are the impacts going to be? We talked about this technology stuff, but we also talked about really what we're seeing now, this fall, more than in the last couple of years, are kids entering the portal after that fall season. Whether that's a coach telling a kid that they need, you're not going to have a spot here, you're not going to play, you probably need to go in the portal. Just go over kind of some things to think about if that happens to you, things you need to know before entering the portal, and everything else. So remember, guys, just like last time, if you guys have any questions throughout this, don't hesitate to write them in the chat, answer all your questions. And we'll start from here. So first off, guys, we're going to go into, let me pull up this article, just ncaa.com. Hopefully you guys can see it. And as you can see, it's not that long. I mean, this is it. This is the whole thing. But we'll read it and we'll see kind of what they say. So the NCAA Playing Rules Oversight Panel approved experimental rules in baseball to permit the expanded use of technology in conference games for the 2025 season. Teams can use electronic equipment, tablets, to access analytic information and scouting information in the dugout during conference games in 2025. Teams can also collect in-game swing data with the use of bat sensor technology. However, data on pitch location, for obvious reasons, if you know the pitch location, the umpire just struck out your guy on a pitch 3 inches off the plate, that's going to cause issues. So data on pitch locations and swings will not be accessible during the games. The NCAA Baseball Rules Committee recommended the experimental rules because college baseball programs are routinely using bat sensor technology, in which data collection devices can be attached or embedded into the knob of bats during practice to track motion data for player development. And Canes, I see your question. I'll get to it after this article. It's really short, and then we'll start. We'll talk about your question. However, in the absence of in-game data, the player development opportunities are incomplete. Player swings will change with the task and the environment. Capturing the in-game data can be measured to compare with practice data to provide the most value in player development efforts. The use of detailed statistics and analytics to inform in-game decision making has become prevalent in college baseball. At the same time, advancements in technology have made immediate and ready access to such real-time information much more accessible. Okay. And Canes, you kind of hit us with really the what I was about to say, Canes. Thanks a lot. I was about to go and get into it. You asked the perfect question. Good afternoon. What type of tech is being added to the dugout? So what they're saying in this article, and again, as we know, Canes, whenever we see a first article about something new coming, again, you guys have seen my videos about, we got decades worth of changes in a year's time. Well, here's some more changes. But the tech they're talking about, Canes, is essentially, tablets in the dugout, which, you as a coach, when I was coaching at Georgia Tech back when I was finishing my degree, you couldn't have a phone in the dugout. You couldn't have any kind of electronic besides, your comms in the dugout. And that's to prevent things like, some kind of cheating with whether a guy's watching the camera feed or something and can shoot you a text if it's a fastball, stuff like that. which, not many teams have done that stuff. Okay. Especially back in the day. I don't want to name any teams, but some teams were pretty well known for doing that stuff. And so with the iPad canes, like the tablets, whether it's an iPad or some kind of, Microsoft tablet or Samsung tablet, they're going to have access to, from what the looks like of this article, again, it's really short, so it's not very in-depth. They're going to have access to the analytics of, their scouting reports and stuff like that, which schools already had that. We all know that. But you had to print it out, and you had like 20, 30 sheets of paper. You also had your spray charts, for defensive placement. So now that's honestly a good thing, because coaches can consolidate that onto a tablet and have it organized. So you can just, you have a couple tablets in the dugout with your assistant coaches, and, new pitcher comes in, this hitting coach and another coach have a couple tablets out for guys to look at the scouting report and what his strikes percentages are, and analytics and spin rates, inverted break, stuff like that. So I think that's a good thing, because now it's just kind of taking out a little bit of work that coaches had to do, or your some of the schools now have analytics teams. You have your college students that are trying to get into the analytics departments in Major League Baseball. Hey man, they're getting experience at these Power 4 schools and other really good schools that do that for a lot of coaches now. And so that's kind of taken a little bit of jobs away from them. They don't have to go print out 50 sheets of paper every game. So it's consolidating that. They're also, what it looks like is, the decision's going to be, do schools and coaches have their players use the bat sensors in game, which to me, I would never make a player do that unless they were totally okay with it, because it's a feel thing. It is different. You add no matter how light it is. You're adding a half an ounce or even less than that to the bottom below the bat can change your swing enough to where you feel weird or whatever. But it looks like they're going to be able to collect in-game data from swing plane, and if you got the bat sensors and stuff. And I do think that what they say in the article, like you are going to get to see this. You're going to get to see, and I'll scroll down a little bit just make sure you guys can see everything. Okay, yeah. The difference between maybe a guy's swing plane in game versus practice, like BP scenarios, I don't see that having a huge impact. And to be honest, and this is kind of my thoughts on it, these players are of this generation, the last 4 years. When I was coaching at Georgia Tech a few years ago, in the 2019, 2020, 2021 seasons, players now are so hyper focused on their swings. Whereas players in my generation, sure, you thought about your swing, but it wasn't the be all end all first thing you go to when struggles hit. You also knew, I got to be on time. I got to have the right approach. Am I swinging at the right pitches? Like, we knew as a group in, 2011 when I was a freshman, that the best hitters were just the best decision makers, meaning, you chose the right pitches to swing at. When you got a good pitch, you did swing. When you got a bad pitch, you didn't swing. If you got a pitch you were looking for, you swung at it. If it was in the spot you're looking. And now what a lot of kids, and you guys have seen this in my videos, what a lot of kids are taught is essentially like, you have a good swing, you're a good hitter. When in reality, you can be a very good hitter. I always say this about myself. I was a very good hitter with an okay swing, like not great swing. And I played with a lot of guys with really good swings that were terrible hitters. And so you want to have a little bit of both. You want to have as good a swing as you can have, but you also want to be a hitter, or what the old school guys would say, like he's hitterish. He knows how to hit. And so the problem, what I see with this is if coaches start, if a kid comes in from the dugout and says something like, oh, hey, so I'm looking at the swing plane and, where the pitch was. And again, I don't know are we going to be able to see the pitch on this? I don't think so. But they're going to be able to look at the swing plane and say, oh, something's looking a little bit off. And then that kid is going to be just toast for the rest of the game, because every at bat, he's going to be thinking about his swing instead of focusing on the pitch, focus on what I'm looking for, changing my approach, maybe changing my position in the batter's box. There's so many things you can go to before changing something with your swing. And that's, to me, in season, a swing adjustment, however small, is kind of the last resort you want to do, the last thing you want to do. There's so many things, and usually the common denominator is usually you're late, so your timing's off, or maybe you just don't have an approach and you're really not being aggressive on the right pitches because you're not hunting the right things against the right pitchers. And so I do think this is going to be good for collection of data, but I would be concerned if coaches are going to start relaying this information to players in the game. I think the best hitting coaches are obviously not going to do that. But if you do have some more, and this isn't knocking analytics guys, but the guys that really didn't play the game at all, or at least at a high level, right? They're not going to have the experience to know that this is probably not something we should be conveying to the player at bat to a bat. And so all of a sudden, I mean, if you're filling a kid's head with stuff about his swing in the middle of a game, I just think that'd be a recipe for disaster. You need to know that stuff, but maybe it's a post-game meeting, or maybe it's, hey, before BP the next day on the Saturday after your Friday game, hey, this is what the data looked like. You're missing underneath, or you're getting a little bit steep. Let's flatten it out or whatever. I think that would be great, but it's going to be interesting to see just how this is utilized in game. I don't know what you guys think. Again, any questions you guys have, not just about the technology in the dugout, but also recruiting, anything in general, development, hitting, pitching, shoot away. But I do think this is the stepping stone for what's going to be allowed in the dugout. Obviously, this is kind of a warm up, letting some in the dugout. Who knows if we're going to see some guys figure out some way to cheat with this. It seems like that always kind of happens when new stuff comes around. But we need to know. I think it's a good overall thing for the game. I just think you got to make sure. Again, these guys aren't big leaguers. These guys aren't professionals. I mean, majority of college players are nowhere near a professional level player with that confidence in that body awareness and understanding their own swing. So if you start giving them too much information in game or even game to game, it can really derail their season. So Canes, but don't the best players make the adjustments at bat by bat or even pitch by pitch? Okay, so this is a great question, Canes, and we'll kind of drop the article for now. If you guys go to ncaa.com, you can see that. But don't the best players make adjustments at bat by bat or even pitch by pitch? Yes. The problem is that your majority of college players are not thinking like that. That's an elite thing. And I'll give you an example. I was calling the Georgia Tech game, one of the Georgia Tech games last year. It was I think it was the Friday game. And, this was in the beginning of the season, fairly beginning of the season, where, Drew Burris had been doing really well. And, that whole beginning of the season, I was saying, man, this kid's got a chance to be a great player, just a fantastic player. But with every freshman, you're kind of waiting for that ACC schedule. When the competition really heats up a notch, and you see, okay, when the struggle happens, or when all of a sudden they start pitching him right. Because I was saying that whole time, like, he's not going to be pitched like a leadoff hitter for much longer, because he was leading off at that point. And in the Georgia game, he's facing a lefty. I can't remember his name. He was a really good pitcher, low 90s, good breaking ball, great changeup, through strikes, just like a top of the notch, just overall pitcher in college baseball. Lefty that's in the low, touching maybe 93, 94. Solid guy, solid arm. In the first at bat, he change-upped Drew Burris to death. I think he got ahead early with a fastball or a breaking ball, and then it was just change-ups, maybe fastball up and then change up, and he's way out front. He's hunting fastball. He's used to getting more fastballs. And that was kind of my first at bat. I thought, what? That's what's going to start happening to him. How long is it going to take him to make the adjustment? Well, the next at bat, I'm not kidding. The next at bat, I think he got a fastball first pitch for a ball, and then change up, decent pitch to hit, bomb. And when you watch the replay, you can tell by watching the front leg of a hitter If he's slightly fooled, meaning you're going to see if a hitter's early and he's hunting a fastball and all of a sudden he recognizes changeup or slider, you're going to see that front knee kind of bend and brace, and you're going to see a slight weight shift forward. Meaning I'm out front, and then your elite guys will still be able to buy time and then, straighten that front knee out at contact and still put a lot of power on it. There was none of that with him. So what I deduced from that video was this kid, this freshman who's supposed to be an elite guy, he just made it a at bat to at bat adjustment. So he just made the adjustment and won at bat. And that's when I knew he was going to be special, because most freshmen, even myself, really, I didn't have to make as many adjustments as that because I didn't hit for a lot of power. And I was a leadoff hitter. They're just going to throw me fastballs. But he made that at adjustment in one at bat, where most freshmen kind of keep thinking, well, that was the outlier. I'm still going to get more fastballs, or that's the outlier. I'm going to get more breaking balls or whatever. So he made that adjustment at bat to bat, like you said, Canes. And yeah, the midseason lump. But exactly. And the more experienced you get, and the better the player, and this comes with just hundreds of at-bats, you start to recognize and make those adjustments pitch to pitch. Meaning if Mark Rusemsky, I can never pronounce his name right, left-handed reliever with the Mariners and a few other teams in the big leagues. When I faced him in spring training, just an absolute buzzsaw of a power sinker left on left, meaning he was just painting it inside corner, and if you tried to swing, you're getting blown up. So I knew as soon as I saw that pitch, like, I have to fight to get inside that ball so hard. So that was an example of, like, you see it one time and you're like, okay, I can't just try to like swing at it like it's a four seam. I got to really fight, like tell myself to get inside and hit that inside part of that baseball. But so, yeah, I mean, that's the best hitters do make those adjustments, but to be honest, it's almost got to be an adjustment you make yourself. And when a coach is making an adjustment or suggesting an adjustment, the player has to be 100% bought in. And a lot of times players are going to be like, I don't know if he's right. And they're going to be 60% bought in, and then they're in trouble. Whereas when you make that adjustment yourself, all of a sudden you're bought in, because you yourself are making the decision, and you're the one that's buying in. So that's a great question. But yeah, that was kind of my story of, watching Drew Burress last year, because I called a lot of games. I got to see him throughout the whole season. But that was that first at bat to second at bat adjustment in the Friday night game against UGA. That was when I realized, man, this guy, he thinks about the game at a different level. And you're right, Canes. Like, the midseason slump is usually when that adjustment happens. And usually the reason for the midseason slump is you start getting pitched differently. And what a lot of kids now, and I have another story that we'll talk about. What a lot of kids now think is they start going through a slump, and they don't even realize the contextual data of, what's going on in game. Like, are you getting pitched differently? Are you getting attacked now to the outside part of the plate or the inside part of the plate more consistently? They just think something's wrong with my swing. And so when you tell those guys, that, it can also hurt them a lot, because they're so preset to think about their swing being messed up that, we'll get back to that in a second. We got a question here from Bruh, love the name. What do you think about Shohei being the first DH to get an MVP? I mean, I think, listen, man, this is the thing. Fantastic year. I could care less if he's a DH or not. I mean, he was unbelievable. His team ended up winning the World Series. My thing is this, though: the stolen base numbers are the thing that kind of, I think, has to have an asterisk next to it. I still think he steals a lot of bags. But when you've made this change to, as I just hit my camera stand there, if you guys could see, when you make this change to where, they can only pick off a certain amount of times, and what that essentially does is, as a pitcher, you don't want to get to that limit number, because then the runner knows they can take a one-way lead. But that also, so you're not going to pick off as much because of that. Whereas, when I was on base in AA and AAA, dude, I'd have guys pick off 4 times in a row. Like, it would happen all the time. And it was frustrating, and it wore you down, because then you're just like, man, I can't even try to get a jump because these guys are just going to keep picking off. So I think stolen base numbers, I think, need to be taken with a grain of salt with what Shohei's done. But I think definitely deserved of the MVP. And I don't have an issue with him being a DH. I mean, obviously he's got an arm injury. And so I think you're doing the right thing. You don't want to put him in a situation where all of a sudden he's going to re-aggravate that thing, and then you don't have him for pitching next year. I mean, I'm excited to see if he can come back healthy with his arm next year and be pretty incredible. So, Kane's question I have now about recruiting: when PBR has events on college campuses, is the baseball staff allowed to attend that showcase event since it is on their campus? Yeah. I mean, they can attend 100%. And most schools, I mean, will always have at least a couple there, if not their head coach. I mean, it just depends. It depends program to program, and if there's something else going on, if it's during the summer, you're going to have coaches out recruiting at the college summer leagues. You're going to have coaches out at some of the travel ball tournaments. So it just depends on the date of the actual event, but certainly you're going to have multiple coaches there. At a minimum, you're going to have like your baseball development guy, or a grad assistant or something like that. So 100% Canes, you're going to have guys there, and it's not like it's a violation or anything. Now, if it isn't a quiet period, it's a little bit different now. But hope that answers that. PBR is an event at Miami this weekend for 2027 kids in the state of Florida. It is currently the period in recruiting where coaches cannot recruit players unless it's on campus. Yep. So now what's different about this year is, there's a lot bigger quiet periods after that fall season is over. And so again, that is something that is going to change up how these events are run, because again, for PBR, for them to market that, they want to have as many coaches there as possible. So they're not going to have these events if coaches aren't allowed to be there. And again, if it's on your campus, you're not going out to recruit. So that's kind of the loophole. You're not going out and traveling to recruit. So it's not a big deal. But great questions, guys. So the next thing I want to talk about, guys, is essentially what we're seeing happening. And we talked about this on our meeting, our Elite Sports Advising weekly meeting with all of our guys. What we talked about, as I pull up this information, is how many players now are hitting the transfer portal after the fall semester. And so there's some things that you want to know if you're a player or your son is going through that. You want to be able to make the best decisions and not, mess up and all of a sudden be stuck with something, certain decisions you can make. So now more than ever, and you're seeing it happen right now, all across social media the last couple of days, especially as, we've passed the middle of November. So most schools now are done with their fall schedule. And let's try to get that caffeine in the middle of the day. Most schools now are done with their fall schedule. And you're seeing a lot of kids make announcements on social media, got 4 years eligibility, a lot of freshmen that were brought in that just came in. Like, this is the thing you guys have to realize. If you're a parent out there or a player, you guys aren't even guaranteed a full year anymore. We've heard from coaches where kid hit 300 something in the fall, had a great fall, a lot of home run, like decent amount of home runs, and they're saying, yeah, I mean, we're probably gonna tell him to hit the portal because we think he's gonna be good maybe in a year, but like we just can't wait. And that doesn't even kind of make sense. But that's how much everything's changed. So if you're a player out there and you're in the 5 class, you haven't committed yet. 26, 27, you aren't even guaranteed like a year anymore. I mean, it's guys are getting cut after that fall semester. And so number one, if you do commit, make sure you're not taking that summer off. Let's see here from Canes. One of them was a 3-year starter. So what place is he able to attend? Well, it just depends on how many years of eligibility he has. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to answer the question. If he's a 3-year starter and he's only been there 3 years, I mean, he can transfer wherever. But this is the one thing I wanted to talk about. We almost cut a kid. I know you're talking about Miami, right, Canes? We almost cut a kid that got drafted by the Reds this season. No one is safe. Yeah, and this is what you guys have to understand. Because what you're saying is, man, this guy got drafted by the Reds. He's probably going to be a stud. There's a lot of high school kids, and still with the 20-man or 20-round draft, it's a little bit different. When I was going through the draft, I'm pretty sure it was 50 or 55, and then by the time I was drafted in college, it was 40. But a lot of guys I played with in high school that did get drafted never touched the field in college baseball, and this is what you guys have to understand. A lot of players that go on to pro ball wouldn't ever play in college, and it's because they may have more talent than the kid in college. But if you don't perform in the fall and that early spring as a freshman, there's no way they can put you in the lineup because they have to win. College coaches have to win to keep their job and keep making money to feed their family. In pro ball, you don't got to win. It's not about winning until you get to the big leagues. So a lot of kids that get drafted, they get drafted off their tools, and they have to show some performance. But it's a big jump from high school to college, especially if you're going to a really good JUCO, really good D2, really good D1. That is a massive jump. And so a lot of kids get there and think, oh yeah, I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna be starting. I got drafted, and then they just can't cut it. They don't play. So just because he got drafted by the Reds doesn't mean he's actually the kind of kid that was going to be a star in college. He may have just not performed well in the fall and spring. But that, again, you're right. You're right, Canes. Typically, that's a kid is usually not in fear of getting cut. But with all these changes, now you are. So if you are a kid that's thinking about entering the transfer portal right now after this fall semester, make sure you understand the 4-2-4 rule. Okay? The 4-2-4 rule, just so you guys know, I'm going to read it officially. I'm not going to be able to put it on screen. And then I'll get to your next question, Canes, or your next thing you're saying. The 4-2-4 transfer rule in college baseball is a set of requirements that a student athlete must meet to transfer from one four-year school to another. Complete an associate's degree, maintain a minimum 2.0 GPA in all transferable coursework, average 12 transferable units per full-time term attended at all college institutions, wait 1 calendar year after enrolling at the initial four-year school. But this is the thing you got to take into account. If you're at a four-year school right now and you go to a JUCO and you transfer to a JUCO, you got to stay there until you get your associate's degree. Meaning, for most guys, that's going to be three semesters. So you're going to transfer for the spring, you'll play, then you'll go back for another year and play again. So you're basically going to spend 2 seasons at a JUCO if you're going from a four-year school. You have to complete that associate's degree. So if you are at a four-year school, it's probably more advantageous for you to transfer to a D2, a D3, something like that, another D1, because you're not going to fall into that 4-2-4, if that makes sense. Because you can go from 4-year to 4-year, but if you go to a 2-year, you got to complete the associate's degree. And that's something that I think a lot of kids don't know, and then they transfer to a JUCO from a D1 or whatever, and then they're like, oh wait, I can't transfer after the spring. If you ball out in the spring, no, you can't. All right, Canes, let's see what you got. Our last signee of our class that came in months after signing day because Ohio State's coach left, so it freed him of his Scully, is now higher in the depth chart than him. Yeah. And that's not abnormal, Canes. The thing is this: you come in with a certain pedigree, right? According, what you're, again, the perfect game and the PBR rankings are fine. They do as good a job as they can, but in reality, a lot of guys are getting rated more for their overall tools than performance. You could be a guy with average tools across the board and be like a number 700 on PBR perfect game, and then you get to a school and you just rake and you're a great baseball player, and all of a sudden you're better than a lot of these guys in the top 100. Like I've told you guys before, I mean, I was one of 22 in a recruiting class. It was the number 3 recruiting class in the country. And I came in, I think we had 6 outfielders. A lot of guys got drafted, and still came to school. And, come spring, I was leading off, led the country in hits for a majority of the year. Hits per game, was leading the ACC in batting average. But because I wasn't a toolsy guy, I mean, I had elite speed, and I had a really good hit tool. But the hit tool is kind of the thing on PBR and perfect game. You can't see that in the showcase. You can see that over performance throughout summer, which I did, but that's not like earning you the 10.0 in a perfect game showcase. It's the tools. And those guys are highly ranked mostly based on their tools. And so there's a lot of guys, like you said, Canes, who they come in highly rated, but again, I mean, that jump from high school to college, especially like Power 4, I was facing Mark Pope, who, shout out Mark Pope. He's now the head coach at Wesleyan High School in Atlanta. He was a 4th round draft pick, Golden Spikes Award finalist. He was our Friday night guy. Jed Bradley was our Saturday guy, left-handed pitcher, up to like 96, and was a 15th overall pick. Our Sunday guy was Buck Farmer, who I saw last night at an alumni tailgate, and he still pitched in the big leagues. It's like 10 years now. So you're coming in and you're facing that. You're not facing like, the commit, you're not facing the UGA commit or the Miami commit or the Clemson commit. You're facing like dudes that are going to be pitching the big leagues in a few years. And those are just our 3 starters. We had Luke Bard as a reliever. He pitched in the big leagues. I mean, a lot of the guys that I came in with who pitched a long time in pro ball. So you're facing a bunch of dudes that are it's a totally different level. So that adjustment is huge. You were the last guy in the signing class. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was definitely like not predicted to be the player that I was. And for reasons that I said, I was not a showcase pony. I was a 60-yard dash pony, but that was about it. Okay, let's see. Canes, we're going to catch up with you here. Okay, back to the 4-2-4. We had a catcher we signed last year, AJ Goida. He was on our roster last season. He transferred to JUCO for the fall and just signed with Texas Tech 3 days ago. So if he completed his associate's degree, then he can transfer. So I don't know if he was taking extra semesters, like maybe a winter semester or a summer. He said he just signed with Texas Tech 3 days ago. So, okay, yeah. So if he transferred to JUCO for the fall, we signed last year, roster last season, transfer the fall. There could be some extenuating circumstance, but again, there's with a lot of these rules, there's like certain things where you can kind of get around it. But typically he would have to finish his associate's degree with the 4-2-4. Allowed. How is that allowed? Yeah, I mean, that's, again, there's extenuating circumstances. There's things that obviously aren't known to the public. Sometimes, like, this is what happens a lot, and this is why we've seen a lot of the changes within the college baseball rules is guys sue the NCAA for whatever, and they end up getting kind of help in certain things. Or you know what, he could have got his associate's degree, but that would have been a lot of hours, I think. They just show tools and they are not baseball players. That's the difference. 100%. I mean, and some of those guys with really good tools are baseball players. So that's why it's That's why you're gonna have some of them that end up being really good, like those guys, like the guys that get picked first overall in the draft, like your Carlos Correa. It's like best of both worlds, right? He's a ball player, but he's also got superstar tools, and that's what you're looking for that in the first 3 picks of the draft. You're not looking for a guy that you have to teach how to play the game. Like you're hoping for this dude is a baller, high IQ baseball player, and he's got superstar or potential superstar level tools. Your first overall pick. I mean, you're drafting an all-star. That's what your hope is. Your top 5 picks, you're kind of hoping for that. And then the further you get away from that, all of a sudden it's you want a big league regular. A guy who may not be a superstar, may not be an all-star every year, but he might get a few. But he's going to be a 10-year player. That's and then it goes down from there. You're drafted in the 8th round like me. You're kind of looked at as well. If he makes the big leagues, that'd be nice. And they just have tools and are not baseball players. Yeah, just like you said before. He also played in the North Valley League in the summer. Okay. Yeah, the Valley League, which is a really good league. Must have been taking online classes. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There are ways to streamline it. And because he spent a full year, because you got to think about it like this. And what I think probably happened, he spent the full year at Miami. So that's a full year's worth of classes. He goes to JUCO, transfers in the summer. If he takes a full schedule summer, which is, you can do it, and it's a shortened time frame, and then you get that associate's degree in the fall, which is probably what he did. Now it makes more sense, because really what I'm talking about that it really impacts guys is if you transfer that freshman fall, right? Not after that freshman spring. After that freshman spring, you're probably fine. You can get that associate's degree in a year. But if you transfer that freshman fall and you have 1 semester under your belt, that's when it's going to be dicey. So I'm glad we worked on that together, Canes. We figured that out. And so this is the thing, guys, like for high schoolers out there, the decision you make is so much more important now. It's insane. It's insane. Because if you pick the wrong school, and obviously this is something, Elite Sports Advice is what we do. If you guys are interested in meeting with us right here, this QR code, fill it out. We'll give you a free evaluation. We'll get on a meeting with you, talk about what we think about you, what we can help with you, everything like that, or help you with, and maybe connect you with certain schools, all for free. And then if you guys want to work with us beyond that, we can talk about it. But the thing is, okay, let me give you 2 examples. Yeah, go ahead. We cut 1 true freshman that we brought in out of the 6 guys we cut. What is his route? We cut 1 true freshman and the 6 guys we brought in. Okay. So was he cut? I'm guessing he was cut after the fall, right? This fall right now. He just got cut basically like a week ago is what you're saying. We also cut one redshirt freshman who has been at Miami for a full year. What is his route? Okay. So the true freshman that gets cut right now, if he doesn't want to be locked into JUCO, you got to go. You either go to a D1 that has a spot for you. I'm going to say that's pretty rare. The thing about the fall transfer is it's tough to land somewhere. Because you have teams that they may be taking on a guy or two, but it's tough to land somewhere in the fall. Whereas after the spring, everyone's trying to get their portal guys, so there's a lot of spots open. So it's already tough if you enter the portal in the fall or like in November. So the best possible route is you go somewhere like a D2, a really good D2, or even a really good D3. Like I know this is what guys have to understand. This is like trickle down baseball-nomics. University of Connecticut, UConn, had like 6 Division III hitters in their starting lineup last year, and they're in the NCAA tournament, and those guys were balling for them. So the difference between D3 and D1 is not what it used to be. It never was like this astronomical difference. It certainly was, there was more depth at Division I. There was a higher end of metrics at Division I, but it wasn't a massive difference between like a really good D3, and I say this all the time, like a University of Tampa in D2 or North Greenville, they can compete with the big Division I schools. So everyone thinks, well, you go down to D2, it's like you're stepping way down. It's not. At some schools it will be, at some schools it won't. But that freshman that gets cut, Canes, that true freshman, his path is probably go to a D2 or a D3 that has a spot and just ball out, put up numbers, and guys will want you if you want to go in the portal, if that's his goal. The freshman, the redshirt freshman, he can pick where he can go wherever he wants because at JUCO he's got he's already got a year's worth of classes in. So to get his associate's degree, he should be able to do that in 1 year at JUCO. So he can go JUCO, D2, D1. Again, some of these kids will be able to transfer to another D1 school, but it's if you don't have any numbers, like, and this is another important thing. And then I saw you got some more things in the chat, Canes. And anyone else out there with questions, it doesn't have to be just be Canes. Ask away. This is fun. As I forget what I was going to say. But yeah, the freshman that's got a red shirt, he can go wherever he wants. But, okay, now I remember. If you're a freshman and you didn't play at all, let's say you go the whole year, you're going to transfer you're going to hit the portal in the summer. If you didn't play at all schools know is you were a guy that school liked and recruited, and then you didn't play at all. So what a lot of kids do is, well, that school recruited me out of high school, that school, so maybe I can go there. Well, they thought you were going to be good too, and then you didn't play at the school you chose. So their first impression is going to be, he's not as good as we thought he was. The reality is that you don't see a lot of guys transferring from D1 to an equivalent D1 school. If you don't play, it's probably not even the right decision for you. You probably want to go to a lower tier. Go to a solid mid-major that thinks, this guy's got some upside, like we'll see what he can do. And we all know if you put up numbers, you're going to upgrade. You can pick where you want to go. You'll probably have multiple offers. So I hope that answers both of those, Canes. And we played them, and I'm scared. You played who? Who'd you play, Canes? If you're out there watching these streams and watching, a lot of the videos that we're posting, trying to get some of our advisors who have done some videos in the past to do some more, because I think they're obviously like Pat Pinkman. He's coaching college baseball for 10 plus years. My brother Jordan played at D1 to JUCO to D1. He was a 4.24 guy, and so both a lot of experience in college baseball. Jordan played professionally. But if you like those videos that I make, they make, and some of these streams we're going to be doing, talking about these discussions and Q&As with all you guys, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on YouTube, retweet it on X. It just helps us get to more people, reach more people, and we appreciate it. UConn, Canes. Okay, yeah. You play UConn this year in the schedule, dude. Every year, man. And when I was in college, they had Matt Barnes, who pitched in the big leagues for a long time. George Springer was on that team. Who was the shortstop for the Diamondbacks? Stud, great fielder, great defender. I'll think of his name in a second. But man, UConn's always got a stacked team, and they do a great job of recruiting that Northeast and finding really good, and they find ball players, dirt bags, like you said, Canes. And then, so guys, we're gonna move on from the 4-2-4 rule. We're gonna talk about some stuff that's kind of coming up in college baseball right now. Obviously, a lot of the fall reports out on D1 baseball. If you guys are college baseball fans, D1 baseball, highly recommend. They do a great job covering college baseball. They got a lot of reports for you on what they see. Maybe your team's one of them. What they see the team having a chance to do in the spring. and just do a great job overall. And so we're going to see kind of what's going on there. A lot of the fall reports are out now. You got North Carolina, Indiana State, Vanderbilt, Kansas, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, my alma mater. And you'll be able to have an idea, really, you'll get an idea of kind of what the entire conference is going to look like. But I do think, guys, what's important to talk about is every year since the institution of the portal, since the institution of NIL, things have changed. Meaning, that first year the portal was open, you saw schools, they went after a few guys because no one really knew that, okay, if we get this D2 kid or this D3 kid, are those numbers going to translate to the Power Four or, really good mid-major school? And what they found is that overwhelmingly, you rake, hitters hit, right? The guy, if you're hitting at a certain level, most of those guys, a high percentage of them, it's translating to the level they transfer to. And so now it's going to be interesting to see with these roster size changes and the amount that you're seeing getting cut in after this fall schedule for the D1s. What is this wintertime portal time frame going to look like for guys committing to other schools? What I'll tell you is this. I've talked to multiple JUCOs and D2s that have said, we're saving money right now. We're not going after the high schoolers. I mean, certainly they're going to go after. What they're saying is right now for in their 25 class, they're saving money to pick up some of these kids that are getting dropped by D1s. Because think about it from the JUCO's perspective. Like we talked about, 4-2-4. This is not only can they pick up a kid who's got some talent, right, who is at a D1, but they can 4-2-4 him. So they may get him for 2 spring seasons and a fall. So a lot of these top JUCOs right now are on hold for high schoolers because they know we can pick up a kid who was at let's say Power 4, talented kid. I mean, you're not getting committed now to a Power 4 unless you're talented. You got talent, you're a good player. We can pick that kid up, offer him, and then he's here for 2 years. So JUCOs are like, man, they're chomping at the bit. They're like, man, we can guarantee he can't transfer after the first year if he rakes. So we got him for 2 years. And again, I mean, coaches you got to do this to win. But if you're a kid out there, just know that's the rule. The rule is you got to get that associate's degree. That only applies to JUCOs. They also got a kid a year earlier. Who did, Canes? While we wait for Canes to answer, again, guys, if you want help in recruiting, whether you're in the portal or you're a high schooler, just, scan this QR code, fill out an eval request on our website, and we'll meet with you and talk about what we do, evaluate kind of where we see you as a player, where you could potentially get, and then if you guys want to work with us, we move forward. But we can discuss all that on a call that you can set up right there. We have advisors across the country. So depending on the region you're in, you'll be connected with that regional advisor. JUCOs with this process they are going with. Yeah, exactly. Well, they get them. Yeah, they essentially get them. They get them for that spring season. So they basically get them for 2 springs. Why take a 2025 kid if you can get a 24 kid for 2 seasons? Yeah. And again, you got to ball. I mean, you got to put up numbers to even be able to transfer. But now you can get kids from D1s, and they have to. Because I mean, you're right, Canes, in a sense. Because before this portal stuff, I mean, you weren't transferring until after the spring season, right? You weren't transferred until after spring season. Now a lot of kids are being told, and this is the other thing, guys. I would not recommend, if you're a player out there thinking about going in the portal in the fall, I would not recommend it. There's just not a lot of spots out there. I mean, that could change, right? We've seen things change every year. But historically, there's not been a lot of activity in the fall. So it's probably not a good idea. You never know what could happen in the spring. Again, if a coach has told you, like, go in the portal, I can't blame you. But if they're telling you, it's not looking great for playing time in their exit meetings from the fall, which at least they're telling you the truth, then see what happens in the spring. Work your butt off all winter and early spring. Maybe you kind of turn yourself into a different player, and if you still can't get on the field, assess your options after the season. But that's when the majority of portal recruitment will be, not this fall and winter, unless things seriously change. Just looking at schools like Chipola, Miami-Dade. Yeah. Like Chipola, Miami-Dade, I mean, they're just going to be looking for your Florida State cuts, your Miami cuts, your Florida cuts, South Alabama, Auburn. That Southeast region, especially Miami-Dade's going to be looking at FIU. They're going to be looking for Miami. They're going to be looking at those and saying, hey, we can get these guys for 2 years. And the thing is, it's easy for them because Miami-Dade, they've scouted all those players as well. They know who those players are. So they had thoughts about them before they committed to Miami or FIU or some of those other, D1s down there. So now they have a good idea, right? They know a lot about the player already. He's not just a portal guy. He's not just a portal guy in the portal. They're like, oh yeah, I remember this guy when he was a junior in high school. Yeah, we loved him. We love this kid. Let's get him. And we can get him for 2 springs. So it's just, things are changing. But I don't foresee that. Obviously, with these changes that came, it was really easy to predict. There's going to be a massive wave of kids being told, hey, you don't have a spot anymore. Right? We predicted that in July. Okay. And then people started writing about it a month and a half later, like, oh, like, there's going to start to be a lot of decommits. And it's like, man, we said that a month and a half ago. And it started in August, like middle of August. So this is where you get all the breaking news, the breaking news content if you're still watching. Yeah, any other questions you guys have, don't hesitate to put them out or post it. My guy Canes is doing the Lord's work, filling up the inbox with questions, like two streams in a row, Canes. Maybe I'll probably do another one of these on Monday or Tuesday. We're not done yet, but we're going to start doing these streams more consistently because I do think it's nice to give people time to ask questions and kind of figure out what's going on. Canes seems to be in a very he knows what's going on with Miami, that's for sure. He knows what's going on with that roster. But yeah, it's kind of that. This is the exciting thing, guys, is now we're in that stage where we get through December, it's college baseball time, right? This is kind of the lull in the entire college baseball season, because think about it. You have a season, you start practicing as soon as you get back in January. Season in the middle of February starts. And then we got college baseball until July. And then you got summer recruiting. Then you got your fall schedule. And this is like the one time that there's kind of that lull in college baseball news. But with all these changes that are going on, we actually have way more action and news in college baseball than in years past, typically. I will say, I was at an alumni event for Georgia Tech baseball last night, and talking with the coaches there, recruiting is just slowing down. I mean, that's just the reality, especially right now in this time frame. A lot of quiet periods, and this is that time, like us with Elite Sports Advising. We're always calling, texting coaches because we have great relationships with them. But this is that time we try to respect their time, because this is that one time during the year. If you guys think about what a college coach does, this is kind of where they don't have to go out recruiting. They're done with fall practice. So they don't have a practice every day. this kind of time where they can kind of maybe go on a little vacation, short days at the office. And because of the NCAA kind of giving them a bigger quiet time period in this off season part of the year, we try to respect their time and try not to bug them too much. Georgia Tech is only recruiting guys they've had on visits already. They landed Pope, which is huge. Yeah, so right now, and I can just show you, I can pull it up. And actually, Josh Elander just shared a little bit of Tennessee's new changes in their stadium that are going to be unbelievable. But yeah, so right now, Georgia Tech, really the big pickup they got and like you said, if I can figure out how to use this thing, okay, here we go. Really the big surprise that they got, if I can find it, I think you're right. They landed a huge in-state recruit. And for some reason, I just can't think of his name right now. But yeah, I mean, so Georgia Tech and really all the Power Four schools are doing this. I mean, and it's kind of gotten past this now. But what you're seeing is they're just trying to land the big guys right now, especially in the 26 class. I mean, they're trying to get the big dogs. And, Colin White, who's a guy that I personally worked with from the state of Georgia, lefty, he's up to like 94. I mean, just complete stud. Maybe a draft guy if he continues to develop. He's in that Georgia Tech recruiting class. I have no insight, but my assumption with Miami is we're only recruiting the guys we had on official visits that haven't committed, because you can't go out and evaluate players, exactly, the big dogs only. Yeah. So because really what happens, Canes, is you have guys on official visits who've already committed. Just so for them, sometimes they're not committed, sometimes they are, but they get, like when I went on an official visit to Georgia Tech, I stayed, me and I had a twin brother, and we both committed to Georgia Tech, and we stayed with players on the team. It was actually Mark Pope, Jed Bradley, and Jake Davies at the house they were at. Yeah, Cole. Yeah, you said Pope, Deion Cole. Yeah, that's right. You said Pope, and I'm thinking, I don't think his name is Pope. I think it's Deion Cole, and I was trying to just get confirmation. But you're right. Huge and huge pickup for them. And but you go on that official visit, you get to you stay with players on the team, you go to a football game, you get to experience kind of the college life. And then you go back home. Sometimes that's when you're committed, sometimes you're not committed. But yeah, typically you're bringing the guys on the official visit that you're serious about them. If they're not committed, you're at least serious about them. But with the 26 class, like, you're just right now, there's so many guys out there because recruiting is happening so much slower. And the truth is, there's going to be spots that open up because all of a sudden think about this, you lose 15. Most teams are losing anywhere from 8 to 10 guys in the portal per year after the season's over. Let's say you lose 15. Well, that's 5 more spots you kind of weren't accounting for, and now they got to be filled. So you either fill them with all portal guys, or you find like a late bloomer high schooler who's still uncommitted, and then you commit him. And so you get like four more portal guys and a late bloomer high schooler, or 2 late bloomer high schoolers. Because sometimes you have kids, all of a sudden, a kid that's got a great frame and is throwing like mid 80s, all of a sudden he touches like a 92, and you're like, wait, this guy, let's take him. For a senior, for a guy that commits as a senior. So it used to be like It used to be after a certain time, like right now, for the 25s. Right now, you'd say, man, there's just the power fours just aren't going to need anybody, unless something crazy happens. Well, now, and again, you don't want to bank on this, right? Because you don't want to go into your senior summer hunting for like hopefully a spot to open up with a team. But now there's a chance that, power fours, all of a sudden they need a few guys because they lose a lot of guys in the portal. And then you're looking at maybe having a chance. But you got to be, you got to be so special now, guys. Like I say it all the time, and Canes knows, like I wouldn't have committed to Georgia Tech if it was the way it is now. I probably wouldn't even have been offered, to be honest. I mean, maybe I would have been. It may not have been smart, because this is the biggest deal, guys. If you're out there watching, is you just have no idea who they're going to bring in from the portal. You have no idea. Like they may tell you you're the guy. You're gonna get every opportunity to play, and then some big dog in the portal pops up, and they don't think they can get him, and then all of a sudden he commits. Like, you're done. That guy's gonna play. That guy's got a track record. He's put up numbers. You're an unknown. You're an unknown asset. You may be a stud, but they're gonna go with the known over the unknown. So you want to go to a school where, and this is, again, I mean, this is a generalization, but if you go to a mid-major, they're typically, I mean, they're getting some sideways movers, some lateral movers, guys that go in the portal and then, think they're going to go power four and then don't. So they move to another mid-major. But the power fours are getting like the mid-major studs, the D2 studs, the JUCO studs, the D3 studs, and even some of your really good mid majors. But your typical mid major is not getting like the stud. They're getting good players, and so you have a way better chance at a mid major because they're getting either the power four guy that didn't play and is coming in, is going to transfer down. Well, he doesn't have a track record. So they may think this guy's, he's got a year under his belt, but he doesn't have some huge track record that he can hold over you. And that is going to be a deciding factor. So at a mid-major, it's just way better. It's going to be way easier for you to compete for a spot, which is what we're kind of telling our clients. It's like if you're a Drew Burris, et cetera, that caliber player, yeah, you're going to be fine. Even if you're not Drew Burris, if you're just an elite freshman or really good freshman, you're fine. It's still a little bit more difficult. But if you're like not one of those two things, and it's hard to know, right? Everyone thinks they're really good. But you got to look at, okay, what's the roster makeup of the team? The thing that was good for me is I was an outfielder. I was a center fielder, and I knew 3 outfield spots were going to be open. But now, even if that's the case, let's say even if that's the case, this 10 days before you get on campus, your freshman year, they could bring in 2 outfielders that they find in the portal. So there's just no way to know unless, you have someone like myself or, another advisor with Elite Sports Advising or that has a good enough relationship with the coach where it's like one of the guys I worked with, who's actually a stud now. He's a freshman at Vandy, but Matthew Shorey, he's looking like he's going to get a lot of innings for Vandy as a freshman. Just a stud kid, hard worker. He was a super high academic kid, wanted high academic. I mean, it was like dream school, like the schools were like Boston College, Duke, Vandy, Georgia Tech. Like that's what he wanted. A few of those schools were involved. One of those schools in particular said, "You'll be my guy. Like you're our guy in this class if you come." And I, obviously conveyed that. And he still chose Vandy, which is fine. He's from Louisiana, or sorry, not Louisiana. He's from Nashville. So I'm like, you're fine, man. Just keep working hard. It's going to be tough. I mean, Vandy, you're going to have to compete. It's going to be tough. And now he's worked his butt off for the last year, and now he's throwing like 94 as a left-handed pitcher with elite command. So he's going to be fine. He threw a lot of innings for him this fall. But the whole point is, like, we try to give you guys the best information and let you know, what the deal is, right? So, guys, I think we're going to end the stream there. Appreciate all the questions, Canes and Bruh. Bruh was on there. We'll be back again talking about college baseball recruiting, development, some of the new rules changes as they keep coming out. But we'll be back again. So appreciate you guys. And again, if you guys have questions, obviously this will be on their YouTube channel, or post some comments underneath if you have questions. And again, right here, Elite Sports Advising. If you're looking for help in recruiting, scan that QR code, go to our website.